All right, welcome everybody to a brand new episode of Now Loading Podcast. Fresh.
Hey, people.
The stale air of October is gone. You didn't hear our voices during that month, and we apologize for that. But we're back now with a new one. This is Darren Hupke, co-host, and I'm with, as always...
Hey, everyone. Rich.
Classic Rich. And we're finally bringing you an episode. We don't have a...
Finally here. I know. We had to take not a little break on purpose, but hey, life happens, and we're back now.
And that's all it was. I mean, you can't control these things. So it is what it is. We're here now, and if you got any issues with that, sorry. It's free, and we do it on our time, and we're family men with jobs and other obligations. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about remakes, remasters, re-releases, the good, the bad, and our opinions on those. Some people get pretty salty when they see like a game being re-released or announced for a remake, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you do something different?" But there's a lot of things we can talk about, so all that will happen right here, right now. All right, so let's just get right into it. We've been gone for a while, and we need to break wind on this. Not break wind. That's something else. I should have like a script or something to not allow myself to put my foot in my mouth like that. But we won't be doing any wind breaking. But let's just break ground on this new episode. How do you feel about remakes, remasters, re-releases? Do you see a difference between any of those types of games? And what? Just give me your thoughts.
I really think that when it first started to become more of a thing, it wasn't too bad because it was the occasional game. It was usually all of these games are highly regarded, even I guess ones that I'm not enjoying or ones that I'm not waiting for. But I just feel like it's just become too much of a thing now. And I think it deters from us getting new IPs that bring something different. I guess I am reminiscing back to like 10, 15 years ago when this wasn't really a thing. But at the same time now we have games coming, I guess, from all angles, on our cell phones and through our computers, through these systems. Like just I guess on any device we have, we can pick up and play a game. And there are original games on like your phone and things like that. Maybe they're not for me, and I don't pay attention to that. And more of my gaming is deeply console based. Even the games I have on my phone, I rarely touch, to be honest. So I think of my gaming experience as a console experience. So for me to constantly see these games being rehashed and remade, and sometimes they're really good games that deserve it, and like they actually put some real work and content into it, like that's amazing. But there's a lot of games as well that it's just, hey, let's remake this for the fourth time to re-put it out on another system. Like I feel like we're hanging on too much to the past in ways and to our nostalgia rather than getting people working on just new experiences in general.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I am 100% all on board. Like I will take a re-release, a remaster, anything all day long, a limited number of them. There's no fatigue to me for those, as long as it's not at the cost of original development of something different with it or something. If it's like, hey, here's our holiday lineup, we've got 2 original games planned, like, oh crap, we've got a game that's delayed, it's going to miss our target, but we want to give you something else. We're going to re-release this title for you, or something to kind of like tide some time over. I mean, I'm all for things like that happening, or as long as it doesn't, they like farm it out to like a third-party studio who that's all that they do, like Blue Point Games or these developers who that's their whole bread and butter. I'm fine with that stuff happening, but I definitely
but don't you think already that like new property has taken a hit two studios doing these remakes?
No, I don't know. I mean,
No?
Again,
Like, I feel like
my bias is with
we're getting
Sony.
a lot of it.
My bias is with Sony, obviously, and I still feel like they have like a big chart, in their headquarters, and they're like okay, well, these are the amount of sequels we'll allow to certain properties, but then we need to make sure we have X number of original content as well, and then that just gets added to their wheelhouse. So, like The Last of Us, that was like late PS3 life original game, and then like Detroit Become Human, and like there's original titles that Until Dawn that they put out. And then you get the sequels that you expect as well, like Uncharted and things like that. So that's all in their traditional development circle. But in that mix, they started releasing like those PS2 remasters for like Dark Cloud, and there's a bunch of games you can download now for your PS4 that were just like those, like Parappa the Rapper 2, that were like the PS2 remasters. And I'm all about that because they're like just enhancing it. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of effort needed because it's literally just that. So I guess let's define this. Remake,
because I really do think you make a great point as well. And especially as we've discussed before, Sony's really on this kick right now. Like, they're doing great, as you said, on their planning and on their chart. They've done a great job at getting a lineup set for the PlayStation 4. And really getting some excellent titles in there. So I see your point of view. So what are the ground rules then, Darren?
Well, let's know the difference between a remake and a remaster and a re-release.
True.
Children are in the background right now, opening and closing doors. Fans are just going to put up with it because
they're everywhere, everybody. They creep out of every crack you can think of.
But yeah, like I would say, like, to me, we've re-released games. They've been like put out again on platforms. You got the Super Mario Brothers titles on NES that Nintendo updated on the Super Mario All Stars cartridge for Super Nintendo, and that was a nice little like facelift to like their quality games. They're really doing a number to the door back there. I really hope it's not coming too loud on the microphone.
Sorry, Dad needs to put some WD-40 on that. Boom.
But Super Mario All Stars is like as far back as I can remember, maybe the oldest one that did that with. But then there's that to me is like a remaster because they're taking the assets of it and they're just kind of giving them a fresh coat of paint. It's not like they're having to develop it from the ground up as some original property. So that's Super Mario All Stars is what I consider a remaster because it's just updating that content. A remake, wholeheartedly, that's new assets, new design, new programming, all from the ground up. That's like GameCube, Resident Evil. That's clearly they didn't just like look at the original PlayStation Resident Evil and then update the polygons and update the backgrounds. That was literally like all new assets, and that took
rebuild. Yeah,
that took a whole ton of effort to do that. But that was worth it. That was like a whole new generation, whole different platform, and a whole different audience for it, really. I think that wasn't... it wasn't too far removed from the original.
To your point, it's basically like Crash right now for Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah. Well, those are like remasters. No, that's like a...
But I think that was rebuilt.
Yeah,
that was remade.
Yeah, they did, because they did make all new assets. They took... What I thought was neat was they got sent assets and like the skeletal framework for the levels from Naughty Dog, but then they built all new assets around that. So that was actually an interesting.
That was cool, and in that case, I think that's a great idea because that's reintroducing a property to a different generation,
Yeah.
So it's kind of reintroducing all of that,
but look how,
especially for that genre that's needed in this Call of Duty era.
Yeah. Well, look how many generations that was removed as well. That was PlayStation 1. You skip 2, skip 3. Now you're 4. 3 generations later you got that. I guess technically Resident Evil was on PS1 and then it comes out on GameCube, which was just one generation removed. So that was kind of soon, but it was such a significant update.
And it was towards the end of GameCube's life, wasn't it?
No.
The original Resident Evil remake? Because they put out Zero. They put out Zero before. No, before.
You're wrong.
Am I wrong? Was it Zero? Or was it the original and then Zero?
I think 1, the success and the interest in 1 spurned them on to continue more development, and then they made an original title in Zero. If I could be misremembering this, we'll have to look this up later.
I'm looking at it right now on the machine that gives me information.
Yeah, and then as far as like re-releases, I mean that's like kind of like what like Sony's doing with those PS2 classics or like the PS1 classics on PS3 and PSP and Vita and stuff. Literally, it's just the exact same game. There's no enhancements or refinements. Technically, those PS2 ones are getting a little bit of a facelift and trophy support, but they are not bending over backwards to like update assets and do anything. It's literally just fill in a couple knobs, play testing.
So would you consider that like a cash grab?
No. As well, I mean, I think everything's a cash grab. Everyone's trying to make money.
Sure. I mean, everyone's trying to get our money at all times.
But if
I'm just saying,
if it was little effort
if
required,
it's just like, hey, here's the same game again with very little effort, but I'm gonna charge you another $20. Like, doesn't that seem like?
Well,
hey.
if you never played the game before, it's a new game for you to attempt to play. Like, I think that I love what this is going to sound crazy for everything I've been saying the last couple of weeks. I love what Microsoft has been doing with their backwards compatibility.
Holy shit, my skin is on fire right now. I can't believe you said that.
They are like being able to buy those games digitally. I mean, it's backwards compatible. If you have the disc, pop it in the system, play it. If you never owned an original Xbox or an Xbox 360, they're curating a backlog of a library of like their classic games that you can play on their systems that are now all under one platform. So on Xbox One, you can purchase digitally if you don't own the original or haven't had it before, or if you still have that library of games, you can pop those discs in and play it either way. I think that's a fantastic way to do it. Unfortunately, because Sony's changed the architecture of their systems, it's not the simplest thing for them to do that. You can't just pop a disc in and allow it to just suddenly play if it's not able to run. But for them to re-release it and allow people to purchase it, I think is fine. I mean, if you own that game already, sure, or if you've already played that game, you're not the target audience for it. If you loved it and you want to replay it and enjoy it, or if it was entirely new to you because you didn't have that previous generation or wherever it was from, it's just more content for you at not a lot of effort from Sony. So cash grab, yes, but not a problem in my opinion either.
Fair enough. Wow, you're just making lots of sense.
And Microsoft,
I think,
points.
I think just talking about Microsoft got my brain scrambled there. So.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense. I mean, I'm all about the reintroduction to new generations. Maybe it's if it's too quick, or sometimes, I don't know, did we really need like Darksiders redone as quickly as it got done?
Darksiders, Prototype, like weird things like that.
Prototype.
I think those were games that are like, and I don't even think those are like appropriately done. Like they don't even, I think, take advantage of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One hardware like significantly. They didn't it doesn't suddenly become 60 frames per second with like uncapped or like with high resolution texture assets and things like that. It was like the game with still some design flaws and still didn't run necessarily as fluidly as before, but it's like the companies were like, hey, we invested so much money in these titles, they didn't sell as well, let's try and give it a second life here, but with little to no effort. I think there has to be some kind of like package or polish. Like those PS2 re-releases, you're getting a 1080p presentation and you're getting trophy support added to them, or some of the games that have like facelifts, it's still a reason to kind of revisit it per se, rather than just literally playing the exact same game on the exact same, content or same platform. It's just weird to me. But there's good remakes out there that are well with it, like that definitely. Resident Evil. I mean, like think about that DuckTales remastered, like that kind of came out of left field and people loved that.
Yeah, and made me feel bad about myself. I didn't remember how like difficult, or at least maybe I just wasn't good at it anymore. I think we talked about this once.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was kicking my ass.
Did you find anything on Resident Evil? I'm actually curious to know.
No, you were right. It was the first one.
Say that again.
Remade.
Say that again.
It was the first one.
No. Before that, you said
remade.
You said something else.
I don't remember what I said before. I have a like short term. What were we talking about a second ago?
You said I was right.
Oh, that's what it was. Oh, okay, yeah, you were. So Resident Evil, yeah, and then Zero, and then you had a couple of the outbreaks during on PS2. And
but those are original games.
Evil,
yeah,
and then Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, Capcom did those. Amazing. Yeah, Capcom did Resident Evil 1, the remake of it themselves. But when you get a company who's doing those like ports or enhancements like Blue Point Games does. Like they've done a lot of games, like those Metal Gear re-releases that I was 100% fine with that because that updated the like frames per second, updated the resolution, and updated the like just the clarity of the games. I thought that was great. And they're actually the ones who are doing that new Shadow of the Colossus. That still, I'm not sure why they're doing that, but like I'm all about them doing that.
That does look that does look awesome, though. I loved that game when it came out, and I'm actually looking forward to that. So
yeah, they and that's going to be new assets on that established backbone. So it's going to be kind of like its foot in both waters kind of thing, like the other one we're talking about. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's some games though that I get that they're just bad and they're just like pushed out there, and you don't really know why they decided to remake that or re-release it. It's totally cash grabs, and they're never really polished or balanced to like run on there. Like what Capcom was doing, like those Mega Man games on iPhone. Like, did you ever play those?
Oh. I tried one of them.
They're like buggy. They crashed. They didn't actually like optimize controls for iOS or anything. It was just like a mess. And I think they only just tried to cash in on like, oh, hey, it's Mega Man. It's going to be a little bit of an impulse buy for a lot of people, and we don't really care about the end result. It wasn't in like a nice package or anything for fans to really enjoy. And that's just
I mean, I think most attempts at games like that, I think that's why I don't care for games on the phone unless it might be a card game or something. Like, I don't think the input for gaming is very good just on a touch screen of that nature. Mm-hmm. But I basically through this entire conversation, my point of view when we started, almost I have to rethink it and say, no, I do enjoy the remakes. I just feel, I don't know, I just feel that sometimes things need to just be left in the past so that we can move on. I think I'm just always yearning for like something new, like even like VR on like PlayStation. I think is like a fun experience, but I don't like enjoy it yet.
Sure.
And I think once it gets to a point, I will. But it's the same thing.
There's
I just want something new. I want to try something new.
Well, what about when it's like a revival situation, like that Splatterhouse game? Did you play that when that came out?
The one they released on the Wii?
No, Splatterhouse. It was like, I think it was on 360 and PS3 and stuff like that. I mean, I personally never played it, but
I know which one you're talking. Okay, yes. I did not play that. No.
Yeah, but that was like, I mean, it's been so long since the originals. It was a side-scrolling, kind of like a horror beat 'em up type thing on the Genesis, and they like basically updated it and reimagined it and all that stuff. Like, how do you feel about games like that? I mean, even like that new.
I don't feel bad about it. I hope they did well because I remember that's the guy with the big 2x4 and with the hockey mask, yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't do well though. Like people didn't respond to it, and I think it got
but that could
reviews.
have been.
I know they were trying something new, but I would just hope. I don't know. Not every game is a guaranteed success either. So, I guess I'm all for them trying. Like,
but I mean, like
I'm okay with that.
The reimaginings, like I feel, are kind of different because, like, I mean, like the new Doom that came out, it was like, hey,
that was good.
It wasn't a bad game at all, but it's like, it's not necessarily a remake per se, but I'm just wondering.
No, that I see as a reboot. That's like, okay, we're taking the world and the mythos of this game and we're restarting it for a new era, for a new generation.
Gotcha. So your reboots
that's different.
Are good for you? If they're done well, I mean, really just at the end of the day, if it's a good game, it's a good game.
If they're done well, and they like, especially if it was a game with like a legacy. So like even like Resident Evil 7, that was a good reimagining and reboot to that series to take it in a different direction because the same way 4 was for the series, I feel that 4 really separated it from its beginnings, from the way the game was set up in the PlayStation 1 era and kind of like moved forward. 4, you had kind of an awakening into kind of what was going on in gaming at that time. Mm-hmm. And you got 4, you got 5 that had nicer graphics and introduced some other things.
Less scares, more co-op action, but less scares, more action and co-op.
Started going more action. 6, they took it way too far. 6 I thought was horrendous as a Resident Evil fan, and they made that other one that was like SOCOM like in between. I can't remember what that one. Oh, Operation Raccoon City.
Yeah.
I didn't think that one was good at all either.
Yeah.
So I think Resident Evil was a good, the franchise had gotten stale, and that was a good way to bring it forward.
Yeah, I don't feel that was 7 was necessarily a reboot, because Capcom still claims like the canon of the story and all that stuff is still there, but it was strategically done that it could refresh like the gameplay style, the delivery, the atmosphere, everything about it. But they still, for some reason, were trying to keep it in its canon universe, which I think they should have just reset, like all across the board to allow them just more freedom. But either way, it turned out well, I think.
It did turn out well, yeah.
That's
even
how
in the game, they like wanted to hide it.
Yeah.
Like you don't find out the spoiler alert. You don't find out the whole Chris Redfield involvement and real Umbrella stuff till like the final act. Besides hints that you get ahead of time, but so it's like they were really trying to push it down. But I agree with you. They should have just started fresh.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
had
still
the
a good
same
game.
setup, but started fresh. Yeah.
I guess
but that's how 4 was too.
Yeah, if they can balance it well enough and like let like longtime fans still feel like, hey, look, this is still part of my universe, great. And then people who are like jumping in and out of the series just when there's good releases, they can still feel like it's they're not bogged down by all this history. I guess if they play it well, like I think Resident Evil 7 worked out so that people who had never played a Resident Evil game could play that and not feel like a jackass.
And go,
for
wow,
like, you know. Yeah. But like the same thing for that Doom. That Doom re-release was just like complete reboot, reimagine it, have like throwbacks and nostalgia like for those people of it. But you didn't need to play Doom ever before to play that game. I'm sure everybody has played Doom, but you didn't need to know anything about it to play that game and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's playing with that emotional connection is what they're doing, leaving, like you said, some of the canon in the Resident Evil game and even in Doom and the throwback characters and whatnot. So
yeah,
they got to leave a little bit in for the people who have already been there to connect to it. It's
like if you're a fan of like mainstream comics, obviously the continuity of the characters are all there. Like Spider-Man's, 700 issues almost of or more than that of comics like all happen, but when like a new writer takes it over, they're not continuing the story of absolutely every single issue that came before. They're kind of carving out their own track out of it. So they're taking the backstory, the history, but then making their own thing with it. So when a reboot happens that can kind of still fall in line with canon, it's cool. Are the Tomb Raider games, the new Tomb Raider games, do they have anything to do with it, or that's like a reboot too, right?
That's you played them, right?
Yeah. I mean, but
I think it's a reboot, and it has some of the canon. I mean, it's starting from when she's like in the first one, she's starting like out of school, but she has the connection to the dad still that he was. So does it
assume that like the other Tomb Raider games will happen in her adventures of adulthood eventually, and this is just a peak early on or something? I mean,
that's a good question.
Either way, I mean. Again, I never really played many of the Tomb Raider games. I was never really a fan of the older ones because they always controlled weird, and I couldn't get on board with them when I was a kid. But I loved those new Tomb Raiders, both the just self-titled Tomb Raider and Rise of a Tomb Raider, like fantastic games.
Yep.
And those are like reimagines that I'm on board with, for sure. The one thing that I because those are being updated now too for people who, if you have a PS4 Pro, you can kind of enjoy an enhanced version of Rise of the Tomb Raider. But now on Xbox One X, like a super optimized patch is going to be out for those of you with Xbox to play on Xbox One X, which I think is kind of cool. And you almost don't need your games to be reimagined and remastered these days, which with the way developers are designing their games to begin with. So like Xbox One, it struggled with like frame rate and resolution. And so some developers went in and put like a 30 frames per second cap, or they put like a set resolution. But once they realized that there was going to be these upcoming hardware changes, they started to do a resolution that scaled, that like dynamically scaled based on how strong the system was. Same thing for like the frame rate and stuff. So those games now, when you pop into your Xbox One X before any patch or before anything is released for it, it's still like just blows out the presentation and makes those frame rates significantly enhanced and the resolution scale. Yeah,
because it'll like just crazy. Play at the best possible way it could play.
And the way Microsoft has set them up, again, to give them credit, If they continue their digital platform in this way, whatever the eventual successor to the Xbox One is, if they still allow it to basically read and play these games with that adaptable resolution and adaptable frame rates, I mean, what's to say, like, you know, the games you're playing right now could be on like Xbox 2 or whatever's next at like an even greater enhanced resolution and even a greater frame rate somehow, with no special work done, with no team going in to remaster it or remake it, just because the developers are like setting those breadcrumbs now by allowing those scalable systems. Which I think that's kind of cool, thinking about the future of gaming. But I think,
correct. I think it's cool. I think it's smart.
Yeah.
And I was watching some interview the other day where one of the developers was talking about that, how they were not hiding assets, but they were basically building their games at a much higher resolution and at a much better mode of running, so that when they put it on like an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro, they basically just shrunk it down, tighten it up to run on that machine, but it can always be expanded back out.
Yeah, and that's like really cool design. It's smart to do that because they only have to do the work once, and then they can, you know, dial back the knobs, dial down the texture resolution, filtering, dial down the draw distance or whatever it is. The adaptive resolution will kick into play. But then once there's more powerful hardware pushing it in the code of it, it will know to just use those higher resolution assets or use that higher frame rate or higher resolution to play that game with no extra special tricks or patches or anything. I think that's just where we can go with gaming now. Seems like there won't even have to be third-party companies like Bluepoint Games and all those people who are like spending time to remaster these games for these people when they've already been able to do that themselves, and they can cash grab in the future or however they plan to release these games.
Well, I think it's brilliant from a business point of view because they don't need to do the remaster. They you'll already have the game that you need for X amount of years or whatever, and because of, you know, as much as we may hate them, but like microtransactions and things like that, it's almost in their benefit to have something that's set up for long-term success that they can either add to or, you know, little by little you're going to buy things for it if it's a game that you're into, and then they can not keep upgrading you, but your game can keep on adapting to the current platform or the current gaming environment,
sure,
and still run at its best.
Like
so that keeps you in it and spending money. Yeah,
like imagine like a Madden game that's just a Madden platform. This is the Madden NFL platform now. And then microtransactions, you know, could dole these things out. But like, you know, the roster update. Hey, spend $10 this year to get the updated rosters, new character models for new players, that kind of stuff, you know. But then when there's like a hardware leap or jump on there could be some kind of like asset or texture pack or something like that you could just spend a few dollars on. And like, yeah, you spent like $80 on Madden in total, but that was over 3 years because you bought like those little pieces instead of having to buy like a whole new disc and making the developers have to go back and start all over again every single year and all that stuff. I would be okay with something like that. I don't.
Yeah,
know
I think
how
for
other
like
people would
for
feel.
certain platforms or games that might be good. Yeah, but yeah,
I mean that's what they wanted for Street
as long
Fighter
as
5.
as long as you said it doesn't kill the development of original IP as well.
That's my biggest thing. Yeah, as long as
I just want new stuff.
As long as Sony
I want a new experience.
As long as Sony keeps putting out the appropriate sequel and the appropriate original title and balances around that, you know, I'm fine. Like even God of War, it's like that, like kind of like what we talked about Resident Evil. It's like a reimagining, or not reimagining, but I mean, it's refreshing.
It kind of is
refreshing the gameplay like stylings. It's still in canon, but it looks like it's going to play like a Last of Us.
I'm excited to see how in canon it is because he's definitely, because it's taking everything from like Norse mythology and whatnot. So I wonder how they're going to connect it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Kratos. He's just got that beard. So I mean, I'm curious. Yeah,
he just took a trip. He just took a trip up north,
yeah,
and
he just walked north, and had a kid, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna hang out here. And this is my new story. You know, just do 3 more games. We'll remaster these later.
I don't like these chains no more. I'm gonna give me an axe. I'm good.
But that's one that like I'm like having it in my head as like an original game / sequel. You know.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. Last of Us 2, same thing. Like, it's only the sequel to a game that was an original that just recently came out. So like I'm fine with that. I'm not burnt out or bored of that. Like I'll take another one.
Oh no, not at all.
I think I'll just take, as long as the game is good, I'll take it. But I don't mind whether or not, as long as there is some original content that's pushed out. But how about to change gears a little bit, still be on our remake, remastered, re-release topic. Is there a game or a series that you would like to see remade, remastered, or reimagined?
That's a good question. The way you said initially, like, oh, I would love, like you're excited about remakes and getting back into them. I'm somewhat like incredibly non-nostalgic. So like, I'm like, oh, I saw that. I'm good. I've been there. I'm good. So I haven't like put really good thought into that. I'm trying to think, what would I love to see?
I would love for there to be, I mean, it's not going to happen, but like in the Metal Gear Solid world, like the way the storylines have played out and all that stuff, like you've gotten so close. The end of the Phantom Pain is so close to where you get to the start of Metal Gear Solid, the original. The only thing that needs to happen is just the introduction of Solid Snake and those first two adventures he went on, like Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2, which they put out on like that Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence re-release. That you could play those original like 2D MSX versions of them and stuff. But I want to see those remade in the same engine as the Phantom Pain, or just some kind of like modern engine, so you could play those games and their stories and see their characters, and then they can like retcon and retroactively kind of like shape the story a little bit so that perfectly bridges between Phantom Pain into the Metal Gear Solid world, and just call it done. Then you could be done with Metal Gear games. We've bookended the stories and we see how they bridge and connect. And you've got Solid Snake's story, you got Big Boss's story, and
you can't tell me that's all you want.
That's all I would want. I would be done.
You're always going to want more Metal Gear.
I would be fine. Well, I mean, Kojima's gone out of Konami, and I don't want to see somebody else like try and do that. I mean,
that's true.
I've got no real interest in Metal Gear Solid Survive, even if it's already like in the side story co-op type of gameplay. It doesn't look bad, but I'm not interested in it at all, and I know there's going to be no story content to like drive that franchise farther for me. So it's ended. I would just like to see a modern styling of those two stories that have always remained in that 2D retro look.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. This whole time you were talking about that, I was trying to go through games in my head. I was like, there's nothing. I mean, I think we mentioned it before. I would like to see. I think because we're removed enough, and I loved it at the time, and I would like to see where else it could go, especially with the way games are built now. Is like a reimagine. Like I want to see what Nintendo does with like Metroid. Again. I loved Prime, and if I could have like a Prime kind of even more retooled into something even more dynamic, and like I was just blown away by that game. Something like that. I like action adventure. I just want fresh things, to be honest. Even I guess if the story is rehashed, like if it feels fresh, and like I like games for the story. I want to feel like I want to have that like boyish wonder of like, oh shit, what's that? Oh shit, what's that?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I couldn't tell you, this series or that series. Like, as long as it feels fresh, I'll play it.
Yeah. Well, then the question goes out to listeners. And there's a game you would like to replay, but rather than playing just that original one, and it was updated and remade or remastered or however you would like to see it repackaged, what game is it, and how would you like to play it? Call into our voicemail line, let us know, and we'll talk about that on our feedback episode.
How about we try to get a Blue Stinger remaster?
Yeah. Fucking remake Blue Stinger, dude. Like, goddamn.
Or not remaster, like remake, like a reboot.
Like, just like some like sweet, gritty like textures, because like it was so neat. The city was like really like neon, like futuristic, but then there was like the weird, creepy like growth and things like that were in it too that they really couldn't. Like, that would be awesome, dude. The Blue Stinger is a good game.
Holds such a special place in my heart.
Yeah. Like, it had its flaws, but it was just at that right time. Like I definitely want to see more of that.
So good.
Yeah, that would be good. There was something I was going to say right before that, and now Blue Stinger just threw me off.
Yeah, see, that's what it does to you. It just comes out of left field and bam, hits you in the feels.
Yeah, that was a good one though. But for this kind of doubles down. Let me make sure people know Microsoft sucks. They are sitting on some great properties if they just tapped into Rare's back catalog, and like
Jesus, I know.
They let the Battletoads be like a guest character in Killer Instinct, right?
Yeah.
They need a goddamn like modern 3D beat 'em up. Even if it's like that Double Dragon Neon style, like it knows exactly what it's doing and it's tongue in cheek and it's just a fun like retro styled 3D beat 'em up. Like that's good enough too. Like let's just do a fun Battletoads game. That's an original game they can put out in a year.
I think they're forgetting about the fun part.
Yeah,
like they're just pushing out like high end and like crazy looking stuff and like sure, but like it needs to be fun and like where's the nostalgia? I think Microsoft kind of ruined Rare altogether. They got their pirate game coming out and that looks cool, but like I don't know.
Well, the key developers from Rare have kind of all left. Like the ones who are really responsible for like those original like nostalgic like the excellent gems in their history.
Yeah, but you leave because the environment isn't there for you to continue doing what you're doing.
I would like to know whose decision it was for them to lean on like doing avatars and like less of games but more of like this world. Was there supposed to be more
like an infrastructure?
Yeah, was there supposed to be more to avatars when they first launched on 360? Was there supposed to be like a Miiverse type of like maybe like a multiplayer lobby where you can kind of meet up and interact with people and stuff like that, and it just never came to fruition? Like, why put Rare on doing that? Like, it just seems kind of like a little bit of a waste of their talents to make them just do that.
Yeah, it definitely is a waste of their resources. They bought Rare and didn't put out anything ever that was that great, in my opinion. That was an Xbox. No, Cameo wasn't Rare, was it?
Yeah, it was.
No. It was?
Yeah.
I mean, that was okay. I played it. That wasn't Rare, was it?
No. It was Microsoft, but why am I thinking that's Rare? I'll look it up.
It kind of had that like look.
It was goddamn Rare, yeah.
It was Rare, right? I think that was one of their first ones after they were purchased.
I think. Well, was there a Conquer? I mean, they did. Yeah, it was all that was a launch.
It has a 79% Metacritic. I didn't know it had that high of a Metacritic. Yeah, I did play that game and it was fun.
That Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts, which had like a cool foundation. I think. I mean, I like the idea of being able to build, like a physics-based building thing is kind of cool, but it was maybe in the wrong package. It didn't have to be a Banjo-Kazooie game. It could have just been a fun, like 3D cartoony type of physics-based building game that could have been cool. But.
Well, again, like we were talking about earlier, that's trying to find the emotional connection to something.
Yeah.
So they were trying to make probably a fun building game, and they're like, maybe it wasn't testing very well, probably from the beginning it was a Banjo-Kazooie game, but part of their testing indicated that they needed that connection. But who knows?
Yeah, right now as a Microsoft fan, as an Xbox fan, you've got that super powerful, super scalable, awesome Xbox One X hardware sitting under your TV.
Dude, I'm rocking some Super Lucky's Tail, bro.
Yeah, you got Super Lucky's Tail. You've got a patched Halo 5 Guardians, which is not the best reviewed Halo game.
Didn't download it.
You've got the
Gears looks amazing.
Gears, which again, it's an all right franchise, but I think it's past its prime. It's an entirely different developer. It's not the best Gears game. Forza, you will have some fun with, absolutely, but there's not enough content. What else? What besides those games that you've already played, probably. Because if you're an Xbox One owner, you've probably already played that. So what's new on that Xbox One X to justify your purchase? The whole other thing too is there's people I know who have really thought Microsoft was telling the truth when they said it was going to be true 4K and 60 frames per second. Assassin's Creed, if you look at a Digital Foundry, does some great comparisons and breakdowns, and they break down the technology. It never hits 2160p. It gets close, but it doesn't actually hit 4K ever, and it doesn't run truly at 60 frames per second either. There's stutters and hiccups. And
well, sure. When the Pro was first being sold, they had also said that it was 4K graphics.
Oh, I know. Well, I think Sony.
And then now
fluffed.
It says, if you look, now it has like a stipulation next to it.
I think they say 4K entertainment or whatever. I think I don't think Sony ever. I mean, if they did, I mean, shame on them too. But,
I mean, sure.
But like,
I think they're, in the constant war for ours looks better than yours.
Yeah,
I think it's just a battle of words that eventually they'll all get there.
Yeah, but I just feel like Microsoft,
we're the closest.
Yeah, I feel like Microsoft's promise was, hey, you guys, it's all going to be true 4K and 60 frames per second, and all of your games without patches are going to be perfect. It's only games with those scalable resolutions and uncapped frame rates that are immediately enhanced. Other games are going to still require patches, like you're waiting on for a couple of them. And
sure, but what's the problem with the download? Like with an update?
No, it's fine. But just I feel like their discussions and their announcements of it made it sound like the system was natively going to boost your games and make them better.
Like it was like a wonder box?
Yeah. But the other thing, too, is Digital Foundry, when it broke down Assassin's Creed, it talked about how it compared that Xbox, the reveal video, when they announced the name of it and everything and showed it off at E3. They compared that video with the final result, and the one that they played on stage at E3, they claimed it was running on real Xbox One X hardware. It's actually a little bit better than what it is now, and what they assume is that it's the PC version that they were running just for demonstration purposes, and they tried to scale some settings to emulate what the One X would ultimately look like, but still the lighting and textures and resolution were higher on that on-stage demo than the final product, which,
that goes back to Steve Jobs' days of trying to sell the Lisa.
Yeah. Or Killzone. The Killzone. I mean, I'll
the
call
Killzone video.
I'll call out Sony for that too. Like, hey, here's Killzone. This is going to look just like this, and then it was not at all.
Just like this.
So yeah, but that's the thing.
Marketing.
I understand marketing, but there's people who I know who bought into that and really thought that's what they're going to get, and they aren't. You definitely have the most powerful console, but you still have no real reason to spend all that money on it without that original content. Got to get those good games. Where are they at?
Definitely.
But yeah, thanks, Rich, for us finally being able to get back and doing this. Another episode.
Now we got to get back in our rhythm.
We want to hear back from you guys again as usual. I know I just put out a solo feedback episode, but the next one, Rich and I will do together. But to do that, we'll need messages from you guys. So be sure to call in to that voicemail line. You can find that number in the show notes, the episode descriptions of this on your whatever podcast app you're listening to it on. I believe it's 605-777-0433. Pretty sure that's what it is. If that's not it,
his face didn't look like he was sure, but
if that's
he said he was pretty sure.
Leave a voicemail to that person too. Let them know that
whoever that is, just let them know how you feel.
To keep on keeping on. But yeah, guys, thanks for listening. I'm glad to be back, and we'll hopefully talk to you in the next couple of weeks with that feedback.
See you later, everyone.